Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed Asif Iqbal, working as an Associate Director of PricewaterhouseCoopers, Pwc India, and grateful to IIM and Smart Power Talk for giving me this an opportunity to share and ignite your minds to live with hopes. When I was growing up, I always was told, Havena, Parvena, Bechara, Kismat Kamara, you're good for nothing, unquote. If I collected a 10 rupee note for each time I would have heard this, I would have become a crorepati by now. Growing up as a child and not being able to see and was only blessed with 50% of the eyesight, where I went to school but could not see the blackboard. Teachers did not know how to deal with the situation of someone who could not see very well. They never took interest, and everyone kept telling me, studying is difficult, studying is hard. And sadly, I started to believe them that I was not meant for learning. I was incapable. I was good for nothing. At home, I never used to do my homework. I never used to take interest towards studies. And I had to suffer the consequences when I failed in class 2 and had to repeat a year. When I failed in class 4 and had to repeat a year. When I used to come home, I would be used to the same dialogue. Look at neighbor's son. They're doing brilliantly well in academics. Look at you, you're good for nothing. People, relatives, families, they openly felt sorry for my father and my mother because their perception was that someone that could not see will have a dark future. My principal used to call my father and my mother and my uncle and demand to take me away. He threatened my father to give transfer certificate, TC, because his perception was that I was ruining the educational environment. But my father and my uncle pleaded with them, give him one more chance, one more opportunities. But I, being told that you are good for nothing, was not willing to really listen and really did not do well in academics. Situation became very, very bad. Threatenings of getting a TC, not being able to accept it in the society was a new normal growing up as a child. Just like every other child, I also wanted to be a part of the family. I wanted to play cricket. I wanted to be in a part of the team that, that I can feel that I'm included. But the reality was that I could never see the ball, and the team that would choose me would sure shot lose. I was the last person to be selected on any team because the team that would choose me, they knew their outcome, which is failure. This went on for lots of time, and my father and my mother was extremely worried because they can see their future being unfold, which is full of darkness and despair. My uncle, my father's older brother, was living in the United States. He came with his wife, who was a white American, for a vacation. She saw me and she proposed my father that, can I take this child away, give him education, give him treatment, and perhaps someday his eyes will be cured. My father jumped up, started the paperwork. My visa got rejected 3 times. Well, finally, through some connections of my aunt, we finally made it, and I moved to the United States at the age of 11 years old. The language was absolutely new. I could not even speak proper English. Well, the culture was absolutely different because I couldn't understand what people are talking about. The food was absolutely different because I grew up from a small town of Bihar, Bhagalpur, to going up to a town of United States of America. I remember the first incident which actually transformed my life, where my teacher had a great role to play. I was actually asked to run a race as part of the physical education class. As expected, I was the last person on the finishing line. Well, my teacher, Mr. Smith, he pulled me aside, and I thought, wow, this time again, I'm going to get a nice bashing, nice scolding. He said, son, I know you're the last person to be on that finishing line, but you have great potential to do much better. Well, somehow I did not believe him because I thought this is a way that Americans make fun of my failures. I still recall those days where I was actually getting all F and 2 Ds. That means failing in all subjects and just passing in 2. I was absolutely scared. What am I going to show this to my aunt, who I call my mom? She's going to again have the same dialogue. Hey, Asif, you're incapable, you're worthless, you're good for nothing. But still, I somehow managed to find a courage to show it to her. And to my surprise, she said, honey, considering the fact that you've been to the United States for the first time, learning new language, learning new culture, you did pretty good. But you have potential to do much better. Thought occurred to me, what if I studied? What if I took my interest towards studies? What would it be like if I can get straight A's over 90% in all my classes? I decided that I must prove to myself and prove to the world that this liability can actually convert into assets. And I have worked hard. I started taking interest towards studies. I actually, my weak domain was science. I was never good at science. I was never good at maths. But I studied hard, and I studied, I took help from teachers, and teachers were very kind, very great. They would tutor me every other day after school, before school. And I'm very happy to note that teachers would even go as far. They would walk the extra miles by coming to my home or by inviting me to their home to overcome on my weakness, such as maths or science. Yes, it took me not 1 year, not 2 years, but it took me 5 years to completely transform myself by getting 90% in all my subjects, from 0 to 90%. That achievement was not possible if I didn't have the positive and encouraging. That achievement was not possible if I didn't choose to liberate myself, to free myself from the negativity. That achievement was not possible if I didn't believe that I could be capable of performing academic excellence, according to me at that time. But that achievement was not possible because if I did not take any steps, or if I did not drive any actions to actually achieve that. Well, the second story and the last story for this session was one incident in my sophomore year in class 10, my eyesight actually started to deteriorate at a very rapid speed, from 50% to 0%. It is as if, like if you are in a room, the lights slowly started to getting dim, where everything completely dark. It was horrifying because I was reading with the help of a large print. If you Xerox a incident, you can see it at least 20% more. Well, again, negativity started to overcome me, and they started to occupy my brains and thought process that it's going to be difficult surviving without your eyesight. I started praying to God and say, hey God, do some miracle where my eyesight would be restored. I don't have to deal with this. Well, unfortunately, sadly, the miracle never happened. I started to get more and more depressed, more and more angry with the world, and I started to question, God, why is this happening to me? You could have taken the eyesight from all people who has evil intention, but why me? I was absolutely depressed. My special teacher who was trying to teach me brailles, who was trying to teach me how to use a talking computer, who was trying to teach me how to cross the streets independently without your eyesight. But nothing seemed to convince me, and I started to go depressed. I started to believe that life was impossible. And I didn't want to learn anything else. My mom, she was trying to convince me, Asif, you don't have a brain, but you have a wonderful eyesight. Sorry, you don't have an eyesight, but you have a beautiful brain. So why don't you make the most utility out of the limited resources you have? Nothing seemed to convince me. I started to get more and more depressed. I wanted to just not live because I felt my future was dark. There's no point in living if I did not have an eyesight. I even attempted suicide. Thank God I did not. I was not successful. Well, one day my teacher, Noam Jordan, he was absolutely irritated by me, and he said, Asif, there are millions of people with the same disease, and they have actually created their own identity. Why can't you? But it all seemed like illogical, irrational. So he told me one thing, that hey Asif, at this point of time you have two choices. Choice A, accept the fact you're going blind, be no one, be miserable, and and have no identity. Choice B, accept the fact you're going blind, learn alternative techniques to overcome them, and do wonders. That clicked. I decided that I'm going to live my life and create my own identity. I started learning, taking interest. I started learning how to use a computer with the help of a screen reader. I started learning how to cook independently. I started learning how to iron your own clothes. I started learning how to do all those things which is required to live a daily life. Friends, once again, I started to take interest towards academics. And I'm very happy to note that without my eyesight, I graduated high school, class 12, with over 90%. This is the power of liberating yourself only because if you think you can. Thank you. Jai Hind.